Hi, it's Dr. Jane Pendleton with my husband, Dr. John Pendleton, and we are back with Maranath Minutes. Guess what? Exodus chapter 1. I promised you we were going to start in Exodus, and this is it. So open your Bibles and come along with us, because we've got about 30 minutes here that we're going to be covering some information that we believe is very important. Remember, Exodus is a connection with Genesis, so you really need to read Genesis before you go into Exodus. That's my best advice to you, because then everything in Exodus, it's much more fun, it's more clear, you get a stronger understanding of what God's purpose is doing this way. And of course today, Lexi's joining us as well. She's got her sledding harness on. So Exodus chapter 1. And now this is about the oppression of the Israelites. Okay, these are the names of the sons of Israel who went to Egypt with Jacob. Now Jacob is Israel. Each with his family, meaning they brought their wives and their sons and daughters and in-laws, whoever was part of that family. They brought a total of 70 people with them, not including Joseph, because Joseph was already in Egypt. Reuben, Simon, Levi, and Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin. And we know there's Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. It's hard to do this with a little husky, isn't it? The descendants of Jacob numbered 70 in all. Joseph was already in Egypt, just like I had previously said. Now in Exodus 1:6, now Joseph and all his brothers and all that generation died. But the Israelites were exceedingly fruitful. They multiplied greatly, increased in numbers, and became so numerous that the land was filled with them. The land was filled with the Israelites and Egyptians, but the Israelites were now starting to rise up. They're starting to outnumber the Egyptians. Then a new king, a new Pharaoh, to whom Joseph meant nothing. And what was it, 68 years later?
Only 68 years had passed during this time, yes.
And they'd already forgotten what Joseph and God had done for Egypt in getting them out of the famine. Well, he remembered. He was just ready to wipe it off. And see, that's basically, it only takes part of a generation, 68 years, to wipe and change everything. One president, one king, one monarchy. That's all it takes to change everything.
We drastic change from being wanted there to we don't want you there anymore.
Yeah. Well, let's see what happens next. Then a new king, to whom Joseph meant nothing, came to power in Egypt. Look, he said to his people, the Israelites have become far too numerous for us. Come, we must deal shrewdly with them, or they will become even more numerous. And if war breaks out, we'll join our enemies. They'll come against us, fight against us, and even leave the country. Now he needed them for workers.
Yes.
So in Exodus 1:11, so they put slave masters over them to oppress them, over the Israelites, over the Jews, with forced labor, which means now it's forced labor. It's now slavery. It's not volunteer because they sold their land from the famine or anything like that. Now they're being forced from this king into slavery, and they're really getting treated harshly. And they built Pithom and Ramses as store cities. Store means like of grains and other goods that they would use for storing food, because they've learned to store food now.
Yes.
And they built cities to store food, and the more greater they're growing, the more food they're storing. Mm-hmm. But Ramses is probably keeping a lot of that for himself and feeding the slaves very little now at this point. The Israelites are probably starting to starve and feel that work, that harshness against their bones and their body now. But these store cities, they were built for Pharaoh. But the more they were oppressed, the Israelites, the more they multiplied and spread. The Egyptians came to dread the Israelites and worked them ruthlessly. They made their lives bitter with harsh labor and brick and mortar, and with all kinds of work in the fields. In all things harsh labor, the Egyptians worked them ruthlessly. So at Exodus 1:15, the king of Egypt said to the Hebrew midwives, whose names were Siphrah and it's pronounced Puah, when you are helping the Hebrew women during childbirth on the delivery stool, that's how they gave birth, was on like a short stool. If you see that the baby is a boy, kill him. But if it is a girl, let her live. So now Pharaoh has ordered the midwives to kill all the Israelites' little boys that are born. Now let's discuss this just real quick. We know that the two midwife women would have been head midwives. They would have been very well respected leaders to have been called in front of Pharaoh and to make that kind of choice. And they were Egyptian, so he thought that they would be true to him because everybody thought the Pharaoh was a god. But these two women had turned to the Jewish faith, and they had friends among the Jews. So let's see what happens here. The midwives, however, feared God and did not do what the king of Egypt had told them to do. They let the boys live. Then the king of Egypt summoned the midwives and asked them, why have you not done this? Why have you let the boys live? The midwives answered Pharaoh, Hebrew women are not like Egyptian women. They are vigorous and give birth before the midwives arrive. So God was kind to the midwives, and the people increased and became even more numerous. And because the midwives feared God, he gave them families of their own. Then Pharaoh gave this order to all his people. Every Hebrew boy that is born, you must throw him into the Nile, but let every girl live. So what do you think? What would you like to discuss about chapter 1?
Well, one thing we need to discuss is the chronology. The chronology goes all the way back to Abraham. So when the Bible states that there was 430 years underneath the oppression in reference to the Egyptians, it started at the time of the covenant with Abraham and at the birth of Isaac. So the sequence, the Bible agrees.
I just got a kiss, thank you.
Yeah, Lexi needs to.
Did God give me kisses through Lexi? Those little blessing kisses? Okay, I'm sorry, go on, I'm sorry, I'm being attacked.
Oh,
Lexi, go get your bone. Go get your bone. Go get your bone. Go on. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Let's start. Go ahead. Okay, I'm sorry.
First thing we need to discuss is the chronology. The Bible agrees with itself. So when you read 400 years, they were in Egypt, 430 years, you have to account for the time and go back to Abraham's time when Isaac was born. And sequentially, you can count down the 430 years. Once you have Joseph coming into Egypt as a slave, there's about 68 years after his death that these events proceed. So it only took him 68 years to decide that the Jews that were welcome and helped save Egypt and the surrounding colonies of people were now a threat. So he tried to enlist the help of his midwives to kill the children. They wouldn't do it. And then he enlisted the help of everyone to kill the Egyptians, to kill the Hebrews, boys.
That's kind of like ISIS today. They were going to kill, have people kill people or attack certain cities, but now they're putting a call out to kill any Christian or Jew. Anybody can do it now. You all get the glory of God if you go kill a Christian and a Jew. So who knows what, everybody thought Pharaoh was a god. So, and the Jews, of course, didn't. They had their God, the God.
What we wanted to do first is talk about the chronology. The Bible's chronology agrees with itself. But when you try to match up all the different things that the Egyptians taught, it doesn't match up. To understand the 400 years and the 430 years, you have to go back to the time of Abraham when Isaac was born.
Mm-hmm.
He was the child of the promise, and the covenant of circumcision was given then.
So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this chapter 1 of Exodus. I hope you come along for the ride, because we're going to have fun. This is, like I said, my favorite book in the Bible. It's a book written by Moses, the second book of the Bible. Moses wrote the first 5 books of the Bible. This is the second. And read up on Genesis. If you haven't watched our Genesis series yet, I'm going to put that link right here, because I think reading and going through Genesis first, I think that's the backstory of Exodus. And I think to understand the covenants and the 400 years, and we're going to come back. We're going to discuss it. All right? So our next video is going to be a discussion on a little bit further discussion into Genesis and Exodus. So we hope you stay tuned. This is Dr. Janie Pendleton with my husband, Dr. John Pendleton, and we want to thank you for coming along in our little Bible study. Blessings.
Blessings.